Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast trying not to panic as we plan out our backlog strategies. Welcome to the podcast, I'm David Lloyd, and with the holiday season behind us, it's time to take stock of all the great gifts that we received from family, all the purchases we made during the sales, and figure out just how each of our backlogs have grown and what we plan to do about it. Thankfully, we've been able to cull a few of those games off our backlog, which we'll be talking about first, but let's introduce with us who's on this episode. Joining us is the man who no longer has to suffer the indignity of having to deal with controller drift. It's Casey Gibson.
It's a game changer, man. Oh my god. It's one of those things that I was like, I don't know how I lived that long. Well, actually I do know. I just didn't play the Switch. But once I guess I should have thought about once they announced like, hey, the backwards compatibility, like I probably could have gotten one, but good thing I didn't, because Jerry came to the rescue.
Yeah, that's there's nothing like the gift of giving someone the ability to actually play their game.
And in style too. It's the Tears of the Kingdom special edition there.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's a nice one. Well, I definitely didn't pooch the intro twice in our recording session to give this man enough time to join us. Having finally seen the light and enjoying the fruits of using a handheld that doesn't run on a potato, it's Jordan Rudick.
I really appreciate that, David. It's good to have a few dry runs before you get to the final take.
Yeah.
I do feel like the Steam Deck is going to be what is propelling me towards the Switch too, or at least tiding me over until we get there. What I'll say is this: the Steam Deck is great, but what it's done is kind of rejuvenated my love of just like picking up random games, looking through random lists of games, and just like being into video gaming as a hobby a little bit more, as opposed to thinking of it as it's coverage. You got to talk about these games, you got to write about them, you got to make videos, blah 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 blah. Now I'm just trying everything. I'm looking at everything. I'm like, oh, this looks cool. Oh, I've wanted to play this forever. Oh, I'll just this is on sale, and just grabbing things left, right, and center. So
I guess this is a bad time
but
to say that you're the new reviews editor here at Steam Deck World.
Yeah,
that's right. New exactly, website coming soon.
Yeah.
Why is every review just a comparison with the Switch version?
Yeah. The Switch sucks, but man, does it run well in the Steam Deck?
Yeah. The worst part of it though is that the Steam's sales website is so much better than the eShop that you're just compelled to end up buying more games just because there's like just the access to even see what games there are is just like unparalleled compared to.
They do need to. They need to fix their gifting because
they do have to fix their gifting. Like
you can't do it cross country. We determined, and then also it's a little silly because I was thinking about like, oh, if you plan. Like, oh, I want to deliver this game on Christmas per se, right? But like they buy it before then on sale. I guess they still get the copy and then they got to return it and then you got to refund it. Like it should just almost like automatically open up that gift if they try to buy it before that date.
It should just work, right? Like, no, that makes a lot of sense.
It's not like Valve doesn't make $14 quadrillion a year,
Yeah. Half of that off me in the last month, I think. I was going to say, can I give you one thing I don't like about the Steam Deck, and I think the Switch does better?
Let me just hold my ears. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, please. No, this is legit. I don't like that when the Steam Deck is in sleep mode, you can't download games.
That's true.
That's annoying. Yeah. And I think they should have that figured out, truthfully. I mean,
I agree.
I've looked into it.
Maybe Steam Deck 2 or something.
Apparently they can't because there's like something to do with Linux that it doesn't work.
That's a shame. That's my only gripe so far, really.
That was like the first day I got it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to download a bunch of games, and I think I did instinctually turn, like, oh, let me put into sleep mode, and then all of a sudden you fire up and it's still at the same percent. I agree. Yeah,
so I just had to be a little more conscious about, okay, I want to play this game tonight. Make sure it's downloading like and I have the Steam Deck plugged in or whatever, and it's downloading, and then 60 gigabytes later, or whatever, I'll be able to play it in the afternoon or something. And yeah, but obviously minor gripe. I am thoroughly enjoying it. So I've picked up a few other games that I'll talk more about later. I do have one main game that was my first game on there, which is great. But I've been playing through 1,000 Times Resist, slowly but surely. And then I've downloaded Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. They were like $14 for both.
Broke
like,
the bank for those ones, yeah.
Ridiculous, right? The number of hours you could get out of those games. And then I downloaded the Harry Potter game, which the name always escapes me.
Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah. So I'm going to play that as well. And then I might get a copy for my wife, so we kind of play it. She'll play on Switch and I'll play on Steam Deck. Just kind of play it simultaneously would be fun. So, I've
poor girl, you're going to make
games
there
to
Switch?
I was just going to say, that game's on Switch? Like, are you trying to punish her?
Yeah. I'll be like, hey, look how good this looks. Bet you wish you had one of these.
Also, at the dinner table, like, man, Hogwarts Legacy is so good. And meanwhile, she's like, this game sucks.
Yeah, you just hear Jordan's wife is in the other room cursing and swearing because the game has crashed for the third consecutive time.
Is this the part where she's playing on a Switch Lite to boot, not even like an OLED or a regular Switch? No, I mean, she prefers it, and she's a bigger Harry Potter fan. I think she'll like the game more than I do. But I just liked the idea of like going through it with her, like, oh, did you go here? Did you do this? Like that kind of thing.
The joint experience.
Totally. There's not a ton of games. I think Animal Crossing was probably the last big one where we did that. Like, and everyone was playing Animal Crossing at that time, but. For us, that our tastes don't always align. So it's either that or it's like maybe an Ace Attorney. I bet you Professor Layton will probably do that too, actually. And I think that's coming this year. So.
Are we all holding out?
I was wondering, did we lose Jordan? Or
No. That was my end. That was my like.
I was waiting for David to jump in.
2025. Period.
We're starting the year off great with. The timing is.
We got to get back in sync here.
Well, you leave that one. You leave that one in, and everyone has to check.
You got to leave
podcast
it in.
service. Like, oh, did I press pause by accident? It's like, nope, we just got you.
Oh man, I was going to ask actually if you were going to check out the Humble Bundles if you've made it to their website yet.
Don't even. I can't. I mean, I don't want to. Like,
you don't want 120 games for $20.
Supporting a good cause. It's more like. Yeah, I know. It's like I need more things to play. I'm already looking at GamePass.
I'll tell you what.
Eyes are wide as saucers.
What I've noticed with the Humble Bundle is that, like, I was religiously checking it after I got my Steam Deck also. But I feel like if there is one worth knowing about, you will find out about it, Like,
everyone seems to hop on those really valuable ones, right? Big name games and stuff.
Yeah, when there's the ones that are like, oh, this is next level. Yeah, like...
Yeah. The last one I jumped on was there was a Warner Brothers bundle. I think it was like $12 or something, or $16, and it was like all the Batmans for Steam. And
I think I did the Lego ones. It was like a bunch of Lego games for like $5, and I was like, like I probably won't play like most of these or any of these, but like I've played Lego games in the past, and they're usually pretty fun.
Yeah.
See metaphors on their website in case anyone else wants to pick up the game of the year from 2024.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't pay what they're charging on the website.
Yeah.
Well, if we've learned anything, it's that it's not that David dislikes metaphor. It's that he's just going to fall in love with it 5 years from now.
Well, he has to play Metaphor 2.
And then he'll
that's really,
back.
really good.
Yeah.
And then go back to Metaphor 1.
And then it wasn't as bad as I remembered. Pocket Edition not as bad as it looks.
Let's not go nuts. Like, let's not.
We need Pocket Edition 16 to come out. Play that, really like it, and then go back to 15.
I feel like this is a segue into the game I've been playing over the holidays.
Do it. Yeah, you got to start with this.
I'll start off with so pre-holiday, I didn't want to purchase anything new because I knew like my Christmas wish list for everyone in my family was basically just video games. Like I said, keep it simple, just get me video games or Steam Cred, one or the other, it doesn't matter. And so I was like, no, I'm not gonna buy anything. I'm gonna play something I already own. And I had a hankering for a turn-based old style game, and Jordan's been bugging me for a bit to give Octopath a try again. It's been 5 years I think since I played it, And so I'm playing it on my potato, and it's fine. It's better
Come on,
than
you're enjoying
it's
it.
better
You're
than
having
my
fun.
memory remembers, but it's still funny. Some of the things, like some of the gripes I have are still there, but I don't know. Maybe I should start with the negatives and then go positives.
You just got to read through the lines, Jordan. Right? He's gushing about this game right now. He just can't.
I
He
think
just
you're.
can't
I think
say
when
it.
you're playing it, like in the moment, I think you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
Big
think
old smile on his face.
It's still a turn-based RPG. Come
I'm not
on.
throwing it under the bus, so I mean that must say something.
Yes.
But yeah, it's fun. I forgot. I'm definitely further than I've ever been. Like basically, I think I got like 2 of the chapter 3s left, and then everyone else is on chapter 4. So I'm past the halfway point for sure. Definitely further than I've ever been. I don't know if they've rejigged the balancing or if I'm just playing better. I think part of it too is that I chose a better starting character this time. Like when I played it the first time, I started with Henit, and the
Yeah,
hunter is
that was the worst one, I
yes,
think,
the
David.
hunter
Yeah.
is not the one you want the entire game. So I went with Cyrus this time. So I've had my sorcerer. So my strongest character is the sorcerer. So it's made life easier for sure. I don't feel like I've had to grind as much this time around. Like there's been a couple points where I'm like, man, that boss was tough. So I had to do a little bit of grinding. But I also came into cross. I found that if I just run with the same 3 or 2, like 2 for sure, like I'm always running with Cyrus and I'm always running with Ophelia. So I've always got a sorcerer and I've always got a healer. And then I've been mostly keeping Therian in, so he's pretty high up there too. I'm like level 40s and then Therian's level 35. And then I'm usually just swapping in the 4th character. So they're usually going into fights with a little bit lower level than the rest, but I'm it's like the 3 are so powerful that they're kind of pulling the weight for the entire team. So the 4th character is always kind of playing catch up, but usually they're catching up as I'm going through, so it's not so bad.
I thought for sure Oberyn would have been one of your like go-tos or your mainstays, like rather than a healer, because he's just so like physically powerful and just can do so much single target damage. Like
Yeah.
I remember getting him really early and thinking like this guy's not leaving my party. He like does way too much damage.
Well, what my favorite is right now is Cyrus, Therian, Ophelia, and what's his name? Alwyn, the apothecary. Because right now, the apothecary can basically do any element, so I'm able to get breaks quicker. And then he's got the what's it called? It's there's a strong axe attack. Something to do with like severing limbs. I can't remember exactly what it is. But he does. So I've got like Cyrus, who has the all the magic, the powerful magic, and the Therian is I'm doing like a shackle foe with like it's a physical dealer that I'll lower their attack and I'll corrosive their armor or whatever. And then like Ophelia keeping, and then Ophelia's white, like the white magic is really powerful now because I given her some powerful spell or the wand or whatever. So I'm just getting people broke real quick and then just hammering them with magic and axe attacks and getting through most of the bosses pretty easily. So it's like I'm enjoying it more, definitely more than before. It's like Octopath Traveler 2 is still like light years better to me. Like it still takes away the gripes of like there are points where I have to grind. There are points in the story where it just feels like it's dragging on a little too much, and the fact that they're the only time they ever talk to each other is through that travel banter. It's still a little weird to me. But and the other part is it feels like I'm just going in circles, like on the map. Like I loved in Octopath Traveler, it was much more experimental. Like, well, where do you want to explore? Whereas with this, it just feels like I'm going in circles to the different chapters. Like especially at the beginning, like I just did a literal circle. So it's and
they definitely learned like how to improve the exploration in the sequel, and I think the fact that like we got a sequel after not too much time had passed, like there were a lot of ideas maybe left on the drawing room floor that they were kind of pretty, maybe excited about introducing. And I remember they had all those surveys about the games too, where they were asking people for feedback and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like they were very open to making this into a longer term project, and that it would be, because whenever you're starting a new series, right, and kind of the beginning of the HD 2D era in a way too with Octopath Traveler, if I'm not mistaken, that might have been the first game. So you're taking a bunch of swings, and inevitably some things just aren't going to hit, but kudos to them for recognizing what were the weaker parts of the first game, and pretty much tidying those up to a T for the second game, right?
Yeah, and Square must be happy with the sales because they're promoting them on social media. Like they were just talking about that Octopath went over 5 million in sales.
5 million, yeah.
And
It's pretty
now
impressive.
the team Asano has said that they're releasing a game this year, so that'll be exciting, whatever that is.
Yeah. Octopath 3, baby. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's either that or Triangle Strategy 2. And given the turnaround from Octo 1 to 2, Triangle Strategy 2 seems just as likely, I'd say.
I'd be happy, just as happy with either one.
I know David would be juiced.
Oh, man. Yeah. Triangle Strategy 2 would be so sweet.
I'd be like running down the street, like,
naked,
like
crank the tank.
Like World War II had just ended.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. No, that's good. I think that, and it's a fault of the game, but the fact that you chose a particular party member who's probably the worst one to start with, and then you choose what I think is arguably the best one to start with, and it does have a noticeable impact on your experience with the game. Like obviously coming off the second one and having tried the first one before, like that impacts too. But yeah, I just think starting with the mage, being able to hit all of the weaknesses, because almost every enemy has some one or two elemental weaknesses, being able to hit all the enemies at once, like it just makes the combat so much more fluid and fast, and you're not wasting a lot of time trying to figure out, like using little dagger or staff attacks, or if you're Hanit, like you have to hope you have the right enemies in stock that you've stockpiled into your team to be able to hit the weak points, right? So Hanit's like she's a much stronger, and I actually like the Beast Tamer better in the second game too. But Hanit's not really that great, I didn't think, until like the second half of the game, when you already have an established team and you're maybe just looking to see which beasts are worth capturing for like special properties that they have.
Yeah,
but starting with her is really rough.
Yeah, it's too experimental because you never know. Like you capture the character and then you don't know what their attack's going to be, so it's just a crapshoot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I know when we jump over to Casey here, I know you've been bugging me to play a game, Casey, but I think I tapped out all of my horror vibes or whatever. Like I played my one horror game last year, and I'm good for a couple years now, I think.
One game every October. That's the limit.
Last year?
You know what's funny is I don't even think it was last year. I think it was a couple years ago, because I always tout Last of Us 2 was like, I played my zombie game. I'm good for 5 years.
It's funny because I guess I just don't consider, like, I don't think of The Last of Us as a horror game, even though I suppose it is.
It has horror elements for sure, but it's pretty like third-person action game.
Yeah, I think of it, more just like a story-driven game.
It is.
More than when mushroom monsters are popping out of garbage cans and behind walls and all that.
No, they're mean. It definitely is a creepy game, but yeah, Silent Hill 2 is definitely aiming to be a scary game, and I think it does a pretty good job. I guess real quick before I know obviously David has not played it. Have you played any Silent Hills at all in the past, Jordan?
If I did, I would have been like with a group of friends, and we're all kind of taking turns passing the controller, that type of experience. Like maybe over a sleepover, we rented a bunch of games. One of them would have been like a Silent Hill on like PS2 or something, or PS3. But so I don't have a lot of memories of it. I've watched a bunch of speed runs of Silent Hill games. I think that's fun, especially in October. But yeah, I'm not very familiar with the series, Casey. So you can consider me pretty new to it.
Gotcha. Okay, so I would say I'm pretty new as well. I played the first one, Silent Hill 1, on PS1 in like 2012. When I lived with a couple buddies, and yeah, one of them was like he liked Silent Hill back in the day, and I never played it, so I picked it up, and I remember being like, "Oh my god, this game is so scary." especially like Resident Evil like was scary to me back in the day, but I think playing it more now, especially right, like trending Resident Evil has always sort of since the beginning, or since the initial games sort of moved away from like the more survival horror to the more actiony. Seven sort of brought it back home, but I guess to me, just like the psychological horror is more interesting and scarier. Um, and this game is obviously very very abstract at times, with the story, but it all sort of comes together at the end. And it's interesting. There's a number of different endings. Um, I guess there's three endings you can get on the first playthrough. Then there's like I think there's eight total. So I think there was like two jokey ones, one other one, and then they actually added two new endings, from the original. So
That's cool.
So yeah, there's a whole bunch to do in terms of like going back and like replaying the game, or like I guess you could probably make a couple different saves and like sort of in 1.5 runs get multiple endings. But yeah, as far as what the game is, you sort of start off as this guy James, and you're like you're pulling up to Silent Hill, or like right outside it, and you're essentially got a letter from your dead wife, of 3 years ago. She passed away, and you got a letter saying like, "Hey, I'm waiting for you at our secret spot, or our special place." And that's why James is back in Silent Hill, but he doesn't know exactly where she is. It's just sort of like, oh, Silent Hill was our spot. So you go in there, and then all of a sudden, like you start out like this cool like little park, and then you start, the fog kicks in, and all of a sudden you're sort of in the weird zone there. And yeah, it's just, man, it the environment, like everything they've done. I will say, Blooper, they're the ones, Blooper team, I think they go
Yeah.
by.
Bloober. Is it Bloober with a
Yes,
B?
it
I
is.
think I want to
Yeah,
say.
it's Bloober. I thought it was Blooper.
Yeah,
Blooba,
that's Mario.
Blooba. But yeah, they absolutely nailed it. Just like the feeling, like, so the visuals are really impressive. The atmosphere, and like just the shifting from like having more, I don't want to say lighthearted, but more like, oh, okay, like I feel a little more safe, if you will, right? Or I don't feel like I'm on edge, and then they ramp it up, and then they sort of release the tension. And it's funny because in the beginning of the game, I was like, yeah, it's not so bad when you're in the actual Silent Hill and not in any buildings, because like you've got pretty wide range to move around. Like, it is foggy and tough to see, but like if I see an enemy, at least I can run away. Where you start getting into some of these buildings, and they're really claustrophobic, and tight, and they're there's a locked door, but I can like shimmy through this wall, but I can't really see what's on the other side. So a lot of like sort of oh boy, like I hope I'm not walking right into the lion's den here. But it's surprising too, because the game doesn't have a ton of different enemy types. Like there's only a handful of them, right? Like, this is originally a PS2 game, and it's not like they've like boosted it out with a bunch of new enemies or anything. From what I understand, they stay pretty faithful to the original game. I guess like some different enemy placements and stuff like that to keep it fresh. But I think like I said, they weren't going and like adding new enemy types, because now we can, kind of thing. They stick to it, but they work well, and like they all have sort of like little variations. Like the first sort of monster you see is like a mannequin monster, and it's sort of like, it doesn't have a head, and it's sort of like, just, it almost looks sort of like two sets of legs, on top of each other, and it sort of like scurries around. But like I said, this just the between the mood and the atmosphere, and then the sound design really like plays into that as well. I think any really good horror game is like gonna have really good sound design, just because I think it does play such a huge part in setting the tones. I was joking the other day, like if you play the game on mute, this game wouldn't be like, it would cut it down by more than half. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of it is just sort of the eerie music, and then your controller, whenever there's an enemy nearby, will crackle like through the radio. Like, I guess your character has like a radio and it crackles, but it plays through the controller, like speaker. So a lot of it is just so almost just tension, right? And like half the time, we're not, so you get in there and it's like, oh, it's like a little bug on the floor that doesn't hurt you really, but like it was setting your radio off, so you felt like you're gonna walk into like this crazy trap, right?
I mean, there's no genre of media like film, I guess visual, digital kind of media, like horror that relies so much on sound and kind of little details like that, like little sounds, big sounds, no sounds, like all of those are super important to the experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you imagine watching a horror movie, a TV show, a game, then you don't have the sound or you're not accessing the sound in an effective way, and you're just not going to really get even half of it. I think it's such a major part of it.
Yeah, and like you said, like the lack of sound is so it says so much, right? And then
Yeah, sometimes that's the most agitating or terrifying thing is why is there no sound, right?
yeah,
Like
like
that it's done purposefully. They've taken out the sound and the music of this part because you're waiting for something to happen, right?
yeah, waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think too, with like really eerie in this, like in Silent, and again, I haven't played all of them, but I do feel like I remember this from the first game vaguely as well. It's just like a lot of like metal banging in the, like, you know what I mean, like just like it's not music, it's just like metal noises getting like banging at different tempos, and like what the heck is going on, and
So disturbing,
yeah.
right? Like it's just discordant sounds, or like I don't want to hear this.
And then what's really cool is, as you're exploring, like you run into a couple of different characters that aren't, enemies, or not perceived as enemies. You know what I mean? Like they're just other people. So like you
Yeah.
don't know if they're good or bad, but like they're not, crawling at you trying to kill you. And just learning about their stories and why they're in Silent Hill, right? And then as you go into and I'm not going to spoil anything, but like then you start to learn more about James's story and why he's there, and one of those games that, like, when I first started, I was enjoying it. I'd play some, put it down, and then when I got towards the end, it really started ramping up. Like I was like, I need to see the conclusion of this game. Like I need to see what's going to happen here. And then when I did beat it, it was one of those like, I beat it last night. So all day today, I've been listening to people, their take on the end, like the ending, and their different theories, and because a lot of it, it does have that sort of, and Resident Evil did it too, where you find like a lot of the story through memos and notes, right, like scattered about. And I really love that, because it doesn't, you don't have to read those notes, you don't need to do all those things, but if you do, you're generally going to get like a deeper understanding of everything that's going on. And then I guess just to talk about the performance and how it works. Like runs great on PS5. Yeah, we're looking to, apparently don't get it for Steam Deck. It does not run well on the deck. But on PS5, yeah, runs incredible. Like I said, looks really great. They really just, you could tell they were big fans of the original game, because they put, like, there's all these, like, again, this is something like watching videos afterwards, you see all the little Easter eggs and all the fine details they put in, sort of, paying respect to the original, but also, sort of deepening some stories in different areas. But yeah, it's a game, like, I played it on standard, and like you could bump up the difficulty on combat and like puzzles and stuff. The puzzles felt good. There was like one or two I had trouble with, that I'd like, go look up an answer or something. I did not die at all. I actually just didn't die the entire playthrough. I was playing on standard, so I'd say at standard difficulty, they definitely give you quite a bit of supplies. You know what I mean? Like there were a few times early on where I'd be like, oh, like I'm sort of low on ammo, but my health, because I've just been shooting everything, right? Versus like, and now I've got a lot of health items, but now I need to use my melee weapon to save my ammo. And then I like, now I'm like using my health items because I'm getting hit more, but I'm stocking up on ammo now. And then I think like eventually you start to learn how to really deal with enemies. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I've got a lot of health and a lot of ammo. So I went into the end of the game feeling pretty like a beefcake, you know what I mean? Like ready to go. So, not super hard. I guess it might be interesting to bump up the difficulty, but I'd say it felt good. Like, again, I guess you could say I didn't die, so maybe it was a little on the easier side in terms of that. But there were times I was close to dying, and it wasn't like I just literally destroyed everything. But yeah, I would say this. I have not come up with my top 5 games of the year and all this and that, but if it's not in the top 5, it's definitely going to be in the conversation.
Yeah, right on. I mean, it sounds great, Casey, and it sounds like you've had a really good time with it. Um, I feel like there's other horror games too, or there's Evil games maybe in particular, where like you get to the end of the game and you do feel like I could take out a tank right now. I've got the rocket launcher I've saved, I've got all this ammo I haven't used, all my health items. Like it's just you play the game so carefully leading up to RPGs. This happens when we play RPGs too, right? You save all your mega elixirs and your elixirs and your one-off like elemental items and stuff like that. Your what's the item to use like a random summon in Final Fantasy 7? Wasn't there like a materia, kind of consumable materia or something like that? Maybe I'm crazy thinking something like that. I know FF6 has.
Well, I don't know which Final Fantasy game you were playing.
No. There's definitely games. 4 and 6 have like items you can use where it's a random summon basically.
Yeah.
If it's not 4, it's 6. And if it's not 6, it's 7. It's one of those 3. But they have an item where you use the item and it just. I think it's like a magicite piece in FF6 where you use that and it summons. Yeah, it does a random summon. You save them all for the end of the game, right? And then it's fun to kind of blast those out on Kefka and hope you get roll the dice well and get some helpful ones or something. But Silent Hill 2 sounds great. I was going to ask you, Casey, if you had some insight into why they remastered or remade this one and not the first game.
I'm not sure. I think if you ask people like what's the favorite game, I think 2 is generally sort of known as the best of.
That's what I was thinking too. They took the most well liked one and just remade that one.
Yeah,
because that's what people would want to play the most.
Yeah. And real quick, just to touch, so I know I did say I get beefed up and you feel like ready to go. I will say it doesn't get crazy like Resident Evil. Like you don't get like a rocket launcher or like you don't get like a Tech 9 or something, you know what I mean? Like you don't get like these crazy machine guns. So it does like, you don't ever get like too overpowered in that sense. But like just enough where it was like, oh, I could get smacked around a little bit and like not have to worry about like dying because I have a lot of, health to re up. But it is interesting. Yeah, I wonder if they will go back after, because by all accounts, it seems like everyone who's played this game really, really likes it. If you, especially like, right, any remake of any game is hard to capture the original fans because they're going to be going through it with such a fine comb tooth, right? Sort of picking out every little thing. But from what I've seen, the response has all been like really fantastic. And I guess even too, like how I said, it was pretty faithful. Like, I guess they like sort of like doubled the length of the game. So I think this, like I finished about 15 to 16 hours. I forget the exact, but it was between 15 and 16, right around there. But the original one is only an 8-hour game.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to with AAA games these days.
Yeah,
you have to add in. You have to do something to lengthen it so that people feel like they're getting their money's worth. Like anything sub 10, if you try to charge full retail price for that game, people are going to be pissed off about it. That's just the nature of the beast, the nature of the market now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, for obviously, I as I said before, I hadn't played the original, so it felt like a perfect length to me. And like I said, I went and listed some videos of people, what their thoughts are. And like someone playing the original was like, yeah, like I liked all like the sort of new additions, but like I guess a few areas felt like maybe they were like 15 to 20 minutes too long, but I didn't feel that, but I didn't have any, point of reference from the original. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like this, whew, I was a little worried, like when I was like yeah, I want to get Silent Hill 2, but I'm like, oh, am I gonna be a big baby boy? Like pick it up, play like an hour, and then like be too scared or like, maybe I don't want to play it. But I was very happy that it worked out. And like I said, it's scary, but like like there are jump scares, right? There are things that startle you and you give like the but it
Yeah.
isn't something like literally like every other room is a jump scare. Like it really does, I feel like, focus on sort of that, like the anticipation and the building of the tension, and I feel like that's really where the game strives and really it succeeds in making you feel certain ways.
Yeah, I guess the first Silent Hill, so it was a PlayStation game, OG PlayStation,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, it seems like it probably wouldn't be like you'd have to add quite a bit now. But
Yeah.
apparently there was on the PlayStation 2, there was a game called Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which I guess was the characters from the first game, but in a different, like a brand new story. So it's like, I guess they called it a reimagining as opposed to a
Interesting.
remake. So maybe they felt like they had already kind of dealt with the first one already and wanted to try something else. And like you said, the Silent Hill 2 is more, I think it's just more lauded as it's like, you know, pick a Final
The
Fantasy
one.
7 to remake. It's like they just kind of went with the one that people seem to gravitate towards.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and plus, right? I think Pyramid Head is probably a big reason why 2 is so like awesome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, iconic
Yeah,
villain.
he's not in the first one, and then yeah, like I think anyone who the first thing people probably think of Silent Hill is Pyramid Head. So to have
Mhm.
such an
Yeah.
iconic boss too is part of it. But yeah, I wonder if they'll like. I guess I don't know the financial successes of how it did. Um, I hope really good. But yeah, it would be interesting if they'd let old Bloober give a crack at giving a proper remake of the first one, or potentially I know there's 3 and 4. Again, I don't know how well they're received and whatnot, but yeah, take this engine and
Yeah.
sort of make Resident Evil, Silent Hill 1. Because Silent Hill 1 was scary, man. I remember playing that on PlayStation. I was like, this game is freaky. Uh, like you're in like a school, and then it's like uh, you go to the other world essentially. So like you'll be, and this is in this game too, where it's like you're in the hospital and like it's creepy, right? And then all of a sudden like you step through a door and like, oh no, now I'm in the other world. And like I thought it was creepy before, but now it's like the floors are like metal grates and like there's just black holes underneath it. Like it just like ramps it up. So it's really cool to see like the similar areas in different sort of states, and just such a good game, man.
So it's just maybe just one more thing before we move forward
Mhm.
here, sales wise. So in October, first 3 days that it was on sale, sold 1 million copies. So less than a week, 1 million copies. So I think that's a good sign,
For a
obviously.
Yeah.
remake of
For
like, yeah, I gotta imagine they probably had to be pretty happy with that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think so. There's also, so one of the things I noted, I don't know if it was on Reddit or one of the sites I was just kind of browsing through, that the sales are stronger in North America and Europe. And I know that the next Silent Hill game, Silent Hill F, I think it's titled right now, seems to have more of a Japanese lean towards it. So I wonder if that audience was looking forward more to this rather than a remake, but a totally new Silent Hill game that seems to have, again, more Japanese theming to it. And I think that might be coming this year too. So
Ooh.
it definitely a resurgence in Silent Hill is looking likely.
Konami coming out of left field. I
Yeah,
see another
yeah,
article here that says, yeah, the release of Silent Hill 2, more than 1 million copies in the first week, making it the fastest selling entry in the series. And while it is a
yeah,
remake
yeah.
in many ways, I think it said it was over 2 million or
Mm,
Hey,
uh,
nothing gets these publishers and devs moving like sales.
yeah,
yeah,
throw a couple mil,
exactly.
baby, especially for a
Yeah.
game that, I mean, they definitely put some resources into this game. It looks awesome and stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess already having like the main story beats must make production go a little smoother than obviously from the bottom there. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if this would ever interest or if you'd be down to get into a scary game. But yeah, Jordan, I could not recommend it to anyone. I could not recommend this enough. And
it feels like one where, like, if we go on one of our boys trips and we want to play like a scary game, like, this sounds like the one to go to, right? It seems to have really set the bar. It's either this or something like maybe Alan Wake 2 is another one that's loosely on my radar for if I'm with a group of pals and we're kind of in that mood. I'd be like, okay, let's play one. These seem to be like the best ones from the last couple of years. Like, let's get into one of these maybe.
Yeah, that's what me and I used to play scary games with my sister, and then now we don't live together anymore, so I had to play it solo. But yeah, good stuff.
Cool.
Well, before Jordan, you jump into what you've been playing, I know Game Pass is going to be part of it, and I'm curious if you've installed Game Pass on your Steam Deck yet.
Okay, so you guys aren't going to like this. I kind of want to keep the game. I kind of want to keep the Steam Deck, at least for the first little while. I want to keep it pure. And what I mean is, I don't want to be, sailing the high seas. I don't want to be like loading different operating systems. And I understand, like, the Steam Deck has all these capabilities, right? There's all these things you can do with it. Playing different like storefronts. I think you can get like Epic Games on there and GOG and
Blizzard.
And
I'm pretty
Amazon
sure
and
you
stuff.
can get on launcher.
Yeah, like, so the ability to those things is great. But I'm just like, I have to set like I need some boundaries in my life. I have to set like walls between different platforms, just because I'm like, the potential just go off the rails, just download everything and be inundated with games when I feel like I already am. So I've not put any other storefronts on Steam Deck, and if I do, it's going to be like maybe like middle or end of next year. God, now this year, end of this year.
It took me a while. I've only actually set up one emulator, whatever, screw it, I don't care.
You're allowed to say emulators.
Yeah. So I've actually, and it's only got the one game on there, but yeah, I like to, like you said, sort of keep it generally. I one day want to, when I get my Diablo itch, I'll probably figure out how to get the BattleNet on there, because I don't want to have to rebuy any more Blizzard games.
Totally, yeah. We've given Blizzard enough money for that series, I think, to this point.
Okay, they've got it between that and WoW. They got enough out of me.
Yeah. I respect that point of view, but I will say
you're an idiot.
No,
yeah, but
it's to set up the streaming version of Game Pass. It's like 2 seconds. It's just you just have to pop into the desktop mode for 2 seconds to put in your Xbox ID into the Edge browser that's already installed.
Yeah,
and then you're like, you just add it to Steam. Like, there's like, you add it as a game to Steam, and then that way when you're in the regular mode, it just opens to the Game Pass page, and then you can play. Like, that's how I ended up playing Persona 3.
It's a game in my library at that point. Almost, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so what happens now is, for Persona 3 Reload, I played the entire game on my Steam Deck, but it was the streaming version of like through Xbox. So
cool.
So it just shows up in, like, you never have to go. You go into desktop mode once, and then it shows as an Xbox game in your Steam library. And then so when I click on it, it automatically like logs me in, and then it just shows all the games that I could stream through the Steam Deck.
Yeah, I will try that sooner, because that sounds super easy. And I'm glad you said that it's really easy.
Oh,
You don't
my
have to
number one
anything.
hang up is I don't. That's like the purity thing, is like, I don't want to install anything. With streaming, and it sounds like it's like a couple of quick steps. I'm down.
To be fair, the emulator was like boot in desktop mode, install it real quick, like lickety split, and then like now whenever I just turn on my Steam Deck like normal, the game just shows up on my library, and then you click on it, and then it just plays. So it's like,
it is kind of crazy that they just show up in your library like that. That is so simple.
Well, that's
so
I always thought you'd
right?
have to like, I want to emulate, I need to boot into desktop mode every time. Even with like Blizzard, I was like, I'm the one, like, that's going to be sort of annoying. But I didn't realize it was like, nope. Now that you play, start it up like normal, and it's just right there for you.
Yeah, Emu Deck is like extremely easy. Like, you basically like I think it even is like baked into the desktop mode where you just turn on the Emu Deck and then you select which things you want to emulate. It automatically downloads the emulator for you, and then if you have like your games on USB key or something, you just drop them and then it automatically adds them to your Steam library, and then you never go into desktop mode again. You're just
that's really
and
just
that's
playing.
how
really
Jordan never wrote another review in his entire
Oh
life.
God, yeah, never see me again at this point.
That's when the Nintendo lawyers grabbed him, and we've never seen him again.
They put him in a cell right next to Luigi.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, no, that's good. So, at any rate, so yeah, Game Pass. I'll do that. I'll do that rundown first, and then I do have another game to talk about. So, my first game that I purchased on Steam Deck, David was very nice to gift me Trails in the Sky Part 1. But I did buy a game.
I think I ended up with that one too.
Okay, I guess we're playing that this year.
If I had figured out how to buy an Australian game, there would have been a 3-for.
The subtle hint on what games we'll be playing in the near future.
Yeah,
exactly. So I Game Pass rundown. We'll get there. In order of like least played time to most. So I downloaded Metal Slug Tactics. That was on Game Pass. It was a game I wanted to try. Reviews were kind of like mixed good. Like 7.5, that kind of thing. I think on Metacritic. And it seems like a game I would like. I like Metal Slug. Metal Slug as a franchise. Like playing this game in the arcades. I played this game for maybe 10 minutes and just thought that it was over tutorialized, to an extent that I was getting bothered by it. And just a little too cumbersome, a little too slow, a little plodding at the beginning. Just didn't like the way it felt. And maybe that's just playing on an Xbox didn't feel great. Maybe that's not a knock against the game, but it's just like it's one of those ones. If it's a Game Pass game that I'm going to try and not necessarily get invested in, I thought that the opening impression was a weak one. And maybe I keep going and it's fine. It gets a lot better. I'm not saying to anyone, don't play this or play this. It's just, I gave it a little bit of time and it just didn't grab me right away. Didn't like what it was doing in terms of the I don't like tutorials, and we need to talk about tutorials more at some point, but I don't like tutorials that force you to do exactly what they say in order to progress. And so it was like, you have to access this menu and look at what this item does and check on this ability and move here exactly and shoot this guy, not the other guy. And I don't like tutorials like that.
Super annoying.
It's so gated off your ability to progress. And you treat everyone like they've never played a video game before. And I really hate that. I'm like, give people a chance to learn or make mistakes. Like that's a fun part of it. If I feel like I want the main tutorial, fine. But maybe give me an option to give me an expedited version, or at least be flexible with how I go through your tutorial. But it was so rigid, and so that really turned me off. And so Metal Slug Tactics is one. If I do come back to it, it'll be a while from now. So very quick on that. The next game that I spent more time with, maybe in the 30 to 45 minute range, maybe a little bit more, Dungeons of Hinterberg. This is a very kind of artistic looking, colorful, action adventure type game. You play as this character. I can't remember her name, but she's going on like a vacation to this Hinterberg city. And it looks like a European village, like in the Alps or something like that, or in Switzerland, somewhere in Switzerland or something. But not a lot of snow, a lot of like kind of colorful fields and things like that. The premise is that people come to the city to go on vacation, but also like do these various dungeons that are scattered about. So I thought the idea was cool. But again, a game that I think it just starts off very slowly, very like, baby's first game, baby's first action game. Here's you have two attacking buttons, Y and X. Here's two really easy enemies that don't fight back at you. And then just slowly, here's your dodge, here's your thing. And I just, these two games just not grabbing me as a result of a very forced hand-holdy opening is maybe just me realizing something about my tastes, and that I want more freedom. I want more respect to my time and the years I've put into video gaming, and just not getting it from these two. I did do the tutorial dungeon in the Dungeons of Hinterberg, and then you go to a second one and you get magical powers, and so you use those to solve puzzles. So two of the powers that you get right away are you get this ability to like drop like a bomb kind of thing out of nowhere, and you can use it to explode rubble or boulders, and you get like a ball and chain kind of thing that you use to throw at maybe a log that needs to be pulled down to make a bridge kind of thing. So two pretty basic adventure type, action adventure type puzzle solving tools to get there. And I'm just about to enter the second dungeon. I was kind of like, if this is like, unless this is really complicated or really ups the ante in terms of difficulty, and I don't get that sense, it's not going to grab me in. So I kind of just put it on the back burner there. I'm more likely to go back to this game. Is this one? Have you guys seen this one? It was announced at last year, I think. And
what was the title again?
Fairly new. Dungeons of Hinterberg.
I know Paige was. I think she played a lot of it.
Did she? Yeah. Okay, I'll have to ask her about the progression then. Yeah. The third game, which I played, it's a shorter one. It's one of those kind of cozy puzzle type games. A Little to the Left, and I'd heard of this game before, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But it's basically just these single screen kind of puzzles, really generally fairly easy, just about rearranging things, right? Turning portraits on a wall so they're straight. And sometimes you have to make
OCD simulator?
Kind of, yeah. But it scratched an itch, I have to say. Some of the portraits might be that you have to straighten the characters or the people in the portraits, not the portraits themselves. You might have to arrange book spines by height or by width or by the design on the spine to make an image. Another one was just kind of rearranging pencils based on either maybe the size of the lead part or the graphite part or the length of the eraser. Like there's a couple ways to solve it. And then, I never found any of them very challenging, but there's a hint system that kind of does a clever way of showing you how to progress if you do need some help. I played probably, again, 30, 45 minutes of that one, finished like the first kind of chapter, which was about 30 puzzles. And they were all themed around like stuff in the home, I guess. Or kind of like everyday kind of materials you might see around your house. And I liked it a lot, actually. I would definitely see myself going back to that, doing up more of the puzzles if I'm in the mood for something like that. But yeah, very charming. And I would recommend people check it out on Game Pass if they're looking for something cozy, simple, kind of maybe just a good relaxing type game. And then the last one, which I've been playing a lot of, I think I only started yesterday, but I haven't been able to stop myself from playing it and play other games. And that's always a good sign. And that's Wild Frost. Wild Frost is a game I may have come across at some point in the past. I didn't really think about it or remember it, but then I saw that it's from Chucklefish. I don't know if it's published or developed. David, I know you noticed about Chucklefish as well. Did they just publish it?
It's funny you say that. I'll look it up while I chat my way through it. But
it looks like
I'm pretty sure. It's published. Yeah, because Deadpan Games is the developer,
and Gazeter
must be a solo.
Which is funny because Deadpan Games sounds familiar too. But
yeah, it does. I want to say that too. Yeah, at any rate, I think this game recently came to Xbox only in December, but it's already on Game Pass, which is cool. So that was an opportunity to try it out. Very colorful, roguelike, card-based deck building kind of game. Stop me if you've heard this before. Like there are so many of these, but I think this one does it well. There are different factions that you unlock. There's lots of things to unlock, actually. At the end of every run, it kind of shows you a few goals that you've been working towards, and it shows you how much progress you've made in those. There's a village kind of center that you go back to at the end of every run where you see different things that have opened up, and then those get kind of added to the things you can find as you go on the run. You get treasures, which are basically new cards that you add to your deck. You always get a lot of options of which ones you want to choose. You get charms, which are basically buffs to cards in your deck, and you can equip those to different heroes or items or companions or whatever. What I like about it is that every run kind of starts off as if a new adventurer is going on a journey. And so they sign their name in the guest book kind of thing. And then they start off at the beginning of the tree diagrams, or the branching paths, I guess. You do about 3, you do a battle at the very beginning, and then you do about 3 kind of interstitial stages where you'll either get a treasure, get a new companion, go to the shop, those kind of, standard things. Then you do another fight, and the fights ramp up in difficulty fairly quickly. All of the enemies you fight have kind of little quirks to them too. So it's not just like their health and their attack power, but it might be like if you attack it, it gets stronger. Or if the one behind it does something, then the one in front of it gets a buff of some kind. Or maybe it has the ability to make your allies or your team take more damage. Or maybe you can set up this exploding kind of potion on one of them, and when you knock them out, the potion explodes and hits the adjacent ones. So yeah, just very, very satisfying. I think very, very approachable. I was able to figure it out pretty quickly. The faction that the game starts with, they're kind of like ice-based or snow-based. And so a lot of their abilities have to do with freezing the enemies. It's kind of like a snowball icon that makes them have to wait a bunch of extra turns, or do extra damage to ones that have the snowball effect, or maybe they're protected from certain effects like that, or maybe you hit an enemy that has a snowball and it makes a snowball go to another enemy and slow them down. So there's a lot of kind of every faction seems to have its own traits to it, I guess, and you can kind of, I guess, you pick which one you're more jiving with. The second one that I opened up was more about like almost necromancy kind of type, where you would summon allies. And then, when they die, that's fine. You can't really do anything about it, but you could sacrifice them yourself, and then that would give a buff to your whole team, or maybe create a stronger card for you to pull or something like that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I played a little bit more before we started recording. I think it's a good one of those games. And so if you're so inclined for a roguelike or a deck builder, I would definitely give it a try. It hooked me pretty quickly.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that was one actually I saw that it was on sale. And it did catch my eye. And then I think I actually in Slack mentioned it, and then David was like, "Those games suck, and if you buy it, you're a big dumb idiot." And I was like, I better not buy it then.
It's like roguelike.
That's because David's playing 1,000 hours of Slay the Spire,
yes,
right?
Like I've like used up my quota of deck building games for half a lifetime, I think.
Yeah. No, it definitely visually, it definitely jumps out at you.
Yeah. It's very cartoony, but very just cute and cool to look at. Like a lot of colors. What you see on screen, it's not like confusing. Like it's all laid out very nicely, and I never felt like, what does this do? What does this mean? Like everything's easy to figure out. I kind of like that in these games where I'm not going to play it for a David Lloyd amount of time on Slay the Spire, but I do want to play in the probably 10 to 20 hour range and like complete a run and just see what I accomplish in that time. And I think it's perfect for that. Yeah, but I could see people getting pretty stuck in. It came to Switch last year, and it sounds like it's on mobile as well. And I might even pick up the mobile version at some point. I know I can't even believe I'm saying that in 2025, but I did pick up Balatro on mobile, and now that's my new obsession on my phone when I've got time to kill. So
mobile's for Pokemon.
That was yeah. Well, my kids play so much of the
Pocket
Pokemon.
Or bust.
Whenever I get to Pokemon, it's like, oh, you've done everything. You've done all the missions. You've done all the battles and everything, and drawn all the packs and stuff like that. So we kind of do that together. But yeah, Wild Frost, Game Pass, check it out. That's of those 4 games for sure. That's the one I'm enjoying the most. Definitely the one I would recommend the most out of those. But I do have one more, and this is the first game I played on Steam Deck ever, and when I started doing it, it kind of felt like a no-brainer because it had been such a long time since I played this game. And that, of course, is the seminal classic, Super Nintendo RPG, Chrono Trigger. Now, I haven't played Chrono Trigger in a hot minute. Yeah, come on. I mean,
it's no trails.
We're allowed to. Oh God, David, we're allowed to say this about some games. Chrono Trigger is not overrated. It's so good. I'll tell you one thing that I thought was funny about this playthrough, and I don't want to talk too much about nitty gritty things about Chrono Trigger, but just some impressions. I've played this game, probably a dozen times. Probably finished it 7 or 8 times. I'm not big like ending chaser. I've probably seen maybe 3 or 4 on my own
what
just
a
playing it,
noob.
and then I know. It's just not me. Like I maybe as a kid I would have chased more of them.
Yeah, when that was the only game,
it's
but now when you get freaking
exactly. I can't. I don't. I feel like I'm not compelled enough to go back and see different endings when I'm like, it's on YouTube. Not like when you're a kid and you're playing. I'm like, I have to see these endings. I need to know what happened in all of them. Right? Very different now.
the beauty
But
of
yeah, Chrono
YouTube
Trigger.
as well.
What's that?
I
Sorry.
said the beauty of YouTube makes things easier too.
Oh,
Point in
absolutely.
case,
Yeah.
Silent Hill 2. I was not going back for all those extra endings, but I did see them
No.
all.
It's great. Yeah, it is nice to like just get your ending, whatever that is, and then if I want to see the rest, I'll see the rest. But yeah, so I played Chrono Trigger, and finished it a couple days ago. Pretty brisk playthrough. Like I felt honestly like 10 to 15 hours, and it really hits differently when you know where to go all the time. Like there's no like walking around talking to people, figuring things out. I'm like I at almost every point I'm like, this is what I do next. This is where I go next. Then I do this. Then I beat this part, and just kind of the dominoes kind of fall into place like that. And I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's just funny that there are games you've played so much where RPGs, no less, where it is really like you've memorized it. You know all the beats. There's not really a lot that surprises you. There were a couple things. Yeah, I guess this is a spoiler for those who haven't played the game at all and are looking forward to.
On brand.
So you could check out. Yeah, I know. Check out for a minute here. I have to keep that the spoiler king crown. This is the first time I think that I finished the game with Magus on my team. And he is a cheat code. I tell you what, like he's so strong. His magic power is through the roof. All of his abilities hit like everybody on the screen. Like you don't have to aim or like wait till the enemies get close together. He's kind of busted. And so I almost felt bad like finishing the game with Magus, Ayla, and Chrono. This team is
OP.
just so OP. And I'm like, I wish I had like done like Luca and Marley or something like that. And just like, okay, at least like they're a little bit weaker, or physically they're weaker, and they just rely heavily on the elemental magic that they have, right? Fire and ice, respectively, or fire and water. I guess
That's the beauty of Chrono Trigger, though. It's like,
yeah,
I always have trouble picking my party because they're all so great and they're in their different ways. So it's like, oh, I want Frog to be in there, but like, oh, but I it's one of those games. And I think it's obviously a very good problem to have where it's like, I just want every party member, yet I can't.
And I feel like that was a big push and pull for me. The whole game was like, I want to swap people in and out. And I realized, but I've made these guys so strong. I'm like Robo has like 3 techs. These because I haven't been playing with him very much because I always play with Robo. And then Marley, who I played the whole game with, she's got her final tech before anybody, and Chrono has Luminaire before anybody, and it's just like the ones you play with the most, or that you maybe for this playthrough you've been just gravitating towards, they get so overpowered with their magical spells, and it's like it's so hard to take them out because then you're going to regret it when you put in someone weaker and they're not. It's like
Octopath 1 when you got to bring that bum into your party. That hasn't been your last chapter 2,
It's exactly right. Yeah. It totally is like that, where you've got 1 or 2 strong characters, and then the one person is just kind of bringing the rest of the team down, right? So that was a fun kind of observation I had about the game. But yeah, just it's so funny to be able to just breeze through it because just one of those beloved childhood games, and had the strategy guide growing up, and just played it with friends, played it by myself, played the DS version. Obviously, the first time going through the Steam version, I'll give you a funny thing that happened with this one. The DS version and then the Steam version added these like cutscenes.
Oh, I love those.
They're so funny, and it's Akira Toriyama, right? That great artwork, Dragon Ball creator. Rest in peace. The hilarious thing was the first cutscene. I think the first cutscene that came up in the game was one in 65 million BC, where the reptites are like kind of converging on your party before Ayla shows up to kind of kick them away. Every cutscene after that one played the exact same cutscene. And so no matter where I was in the game, meeting Magus or whatever event was happening that have a cutscene attached to it, it played the exact same cutscene from 65 million BC every single time. I just had to laugh. I'm like, this is clearly like a Steam version problem, but what a funny one to be. That's the glitch that's still in this game is, and maybe I didn't download a patch or something. I don't know, but just playing this game, that's the one like hiccup that it has. It keeps repeating the same cutscene every time. I could skip through it. It was just funny to me that was the one kind of issue that came up.
I always liked I guess when I think of those little new cutscenes they put in is when Frog opens up the path, right? Like splits the
mountain.
The mountain, right? Yeah, and
yeah.
the path.
Yeah, I guess the Masamune and it splits
and
the
I love
mountain.
like
cool.
They show like the super cool anime style cutscene, and it's like, oh, that was so epic. And then but then they show the original like cutscene afterwards, which is just like, and like it just parts ways a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny to see them back to back.
The power of the SNES back then, right? Like the best they could do. Another funny thing was the race you do, the Mode 7 race with the jet bike in the future timeline. I remember that being very hard, but I whooped the guy. It was like, I mean, I never felt like, I know there's a catch-up logic where he kind of saves you the whole time, but I felt like I kind of trapped him behind me and I just had him bouncing off the back of my bike the whole time. It was hilarious. And again, just one of those experience things. Like I know how to beat him. I was
You're
pretty
seasoned
pretty
driver
confident
these
in it.
days now.
Exactly. Yeah. But man, what a game! The music is unreal. It's so good. What a soundtrack. It's still such an emotional story. Like the friendship between the party members, and when you have different ones, when you play around with different ones, like you get different people kind of leading the scenes a bit, which is neat, right? It doesn't always have to be Chrono in the front. Especially later in the game, like put Frog in front or whoever, and they get a little bit more dialogue. And so that was cool to see just some different exchanges and comments that I hadn't seen before. Just trying to experiment a little bit more, given just how the experience with the game. So that was really neat. But man, it really does still hold up. It's easy to play. I don't think you get so much joy out of just like a lot of side things, a lot of you noticing the little changes that happen between the different generations that you visit, the different time periods. I didn't do everything at the end of the game, like all the side quests that kind of open up, but I did the ones that I kind of remember having pretty good emotional story beats. Like Robo's one is really good. Yeah, you got to do that one. And then there's a nice
Luca
payoff
has
for that
a good one too.
They
all do. Yeah. They all do in their own way. They all do. For sure.
Yeah. There is a little bit of. It's funny that Magus gets kind of underbaked in the endings, I think. As if like they know he's not the party member most people are going to choose to have, or choose to finish the game with or whatever, right? You're going to kind of go against him and just keep him as a villain. So it was funny to finally finish the game with him and see like just that he's kind of underwritten a little bit and doesn't have the same number of lines as everybody else. He's kind of just brooding and silent.
Like, move it along.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, you chose poorly. You're supposed to rescue Frog.
You guys are cheaters, and you went with the OP guy. You get
that's it. Exactly. Yeah. That is funny that he's the bad choice, and he's so strong, right? And I guess that does kind of make sense. You're always a little bit pushed in RPGs to do the moral choice, and he is definitely not that. But yeah, Chrono Trigger still fantastic. Still very happy that was my first completed game on Steam, and I do love it. I was happy to finally go back to it after a number of years. It has been probably 8 to 10 years since I've replayed Chrono Trigger. I know the last time I did play was the DS version, which I'm still very fond of. But this was a really good experience too.
Cool. Well, it's not as often as my annual Trails in the Sky playthrough. So
no.
But, I used to do an annual Link to the Past back in the day, but
that's a good one.
It's been a minute now. But yeah, it's funny when you play those games over and over as a kid, and then they just literally, muscle memory going through them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's like Final Fantasy.
I mean, that's
on NES.
Yep, yeah, I've got it for that too. Like you're so familiar with the story beats, and there's never really a moment where you don't know what to do. And sometimes that it's fun in RPGs to not know exactly where to go for a minute before you talk to someone and they're like, oh, of course that's where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
Or you remember what someone said, but then you go back to these ones and you're just like, yeah, I've kind of figured this one out. Like I feel like I could write the guidebook now.
Cool. Well, it's funny that we're talking about the games that we've been playing lately. Been able to strike a couple games off our backlogs because I know all three of us have added way too many games over the holidays. So yeah, we'll have a long and hearty 2025 to look forward to. But I think for this episode, I guess we'll probably wrap it up here. Jordan, if you want to take us out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we've got a lot of fun games to talk about coming up soon. There's a E's memoir that's coming out this month. I was looking the other day at RPGs and other games coming out in January, and I think there are some interesting ones. So yeah, we'll get to those in due time. But yeah, we're gonna have more to share on just the games we've got over the holidays and have been playing over the holidays, and what we've added to our backlogs and more impressions of those too. So that'll be really fun. David, you had some ideas floating around in the discourse about moving the podcast forward to some plans for maybe upcoming episodes and such. If you wanted to maybe reiterate that here.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just always looking to do new things and keep things fresh. So you could pop into our Discord channel and let us know the types of episodes you're looking forward to. I know one of the things that's come up already is getting back to the RPG club, where we pick a game and everyone on the Discord or whoever wants to join in kind of pop in and talk about the game as we play through it. And then we'll do an episode, when we get to the point where most of us have finished it. So that's, an option to go back to. But we're always looking to keep things new and experiment with some new ideas. So.
Totally, yeah. So if you're someone who wants to join an RPG club or join a game club, that's an idea percolating in the Discord. So hop in, if you haven't already, and let us know kind of maybe some games you'd like to throw out for consideration for something like that. It'd be really fun. But yeah, it's a new year. We have lots of good games coming out this year, new consoles, new experiences. I'm really looking forward to it. So definitely, we want to wish a happy new year to everybody out there listening who's kind of stuck with us for so many years. We're slowly but surely approaching episode 300, which is fun too. I'm trying to do like the math. It's probably like I think it's end of February kind of time or beginning of March.
Well, it's funny. It's going to probably be in March on like the 7-year anniversary.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's that. So appropriately so, I guess. Yeah. 7 for Final Fantasy 7, I suppose.
Right? For the greatest game ever made.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. But yeah, no, thanks to Casey for joining us and David, good to catch up again. Thanks everybody out there for listening. Just wanted to share some Game Pass impressions. We'll have more of those, obviously. Casey was able to wrap up Silent Hill 2. David, I'm sure we'll have some final thoughts on Octopath Traveler when he inevitably reaches the end.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time you're finishing the game, right? You didn't finish it the first time.
No, I did not. I was actually surprised to find my cartridge. I figured I chucked it off a cliff. I was sure.
Yeah,
or flushed it down the toilet. One of the two.
There's a part of your brain that's like, no, Jordan might be right. Yeah. I got to hold on to this. I got to, give it another chance at some point.
Had to wait 5 years to be in a different frame of mind.
Hey, it's okay. That as long as we get to the right answer eventually, that's what matters. Chrono Trigger, no, not a news bulletin or surprise anyone. Chrono Trigger is still awesome. But yeah, thanks everybody. We'll have a new episode in the next week. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be, but again, we've got lots of games we want to share. You're going to hear about all of them. Hope everyone has a great week ahead, and your New Year's off to a good start and all that. And we'll talk to you again soon on the Thirsty Mage. Bye for now.
Adios.
Bye.